Good evening, this is Viewpoint. I'm Zaka Jacob. There were dramatic scenes over the weekend in Brampton, Canada, where Hindu activists gear out the mayor of the city for his openly anti-Hindu and anti-India comments. They also have another peeve with him that there are these posters across the city falsely accusing Hindu groups of killing Sikh infants. Remember, this is also on the back of a second referendum that happened in Canada for a free Khalistan. How can Canada openly allow such blatant anti-India activity to happen on its soil? Does this not go against the UN Charter, where open refuge is being given to activities that target another sovereign state? What can and what should India do? That's what we'll take up on Viewpoint. But first, the story of what was a dramatic weekend in Canada.
That's the mayor of a Canadian city called Brampton.
He's our honorable guest.
He's being heckled in a temple by members of the Hindu community. Why? Because banners have been put up across the city with the text "Sikh Infants burnt alive by Hindu mobs." When questioned about it, the mayor refused to condemn the posters. In another Canadian city, Mississauga, more than 75,000 Canadian Sikhs voted in a referendum seeking secession of Punjab from India to create a Khalistan state. This is the second pro-Khalistan referendum in Canada in less than 2 months, despite the Indian government's strong objection.
Our position on the efforts by anti-Indian elements to hold a so-called Khalistan referendum is well known. It has been conveyed to the Canadian government, both in New Delhi and in Canada.
On Diwali Day in Mississauga, hundreds of pro-Khalistan supporters clashed with Hindu groups. They held banners and raised slogans supporting the Khalistan referendum movement. Canada's High Commissioner to India says his country does not support or recognize these Khalistani referendums. Yet, the Trudeau government doesn't appear to be making any attempt to shut them down. So why is Canada giving a platform to anti-India hate?
Why is Canada allowing this kind of platform, allowing its soil for such anti-India hate? And what is it that the government of India can and should do? Vishnu Prakash is former diplomat. He's joining us on the broadcast this evening. Sushant Sareen, senior fellow with the Observer Research Foundation. Manjinder Singh Sirsa is spokesperson of the BJP. Lord Rami Ranger will be joining us as the chairman of the British Sikh Association. Let me start with Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, because all of this is happening in Canada on a foreign country's soil. This is openly anti-India activity. Why should India turn around and not do anything about it? Yes, diplomatic representations have been made both in Ottawa as well as here in Delhi, but it doesn't seem like this is ending anytime soon.
Greetings, Jacob. First of all, the facts. The fact is that the Trudeau government is pandering to vote bank politics. It's cynical politics. And of late, because they are a minority government and they have need the support of NDP, which is led by Jagmeet Singh, who is a pro-Khalistani politician, they have become quite blatant about the whole thing. Now, we have time and again been taking up the matter. We have been taking up the matter quite forcefully. There are two aspects to it. One, the India-Canada relationship is much bigger than the present, let's say, the tenure of this government. Trudeau government has been particularly, if not supportive, they have been turning a Nelson's eye to the Khalistani activities. So that is one. We have to ensure that the relationship, to the extent is possible, is protected. Mm-hmm. Also, I think we have been telling them clearly, privately, that this is not acceptable, that this is bound to impact the relationship. And I guess if this continues, we'll have to look at other ways and means to let our views and let the world know what Canada is doing, because what they are doing is clearly against international norms, against it's against what any friendly country will do for another country.
Absolutely. I mean, just because the Canadian government has whatever its political compulsions are, whatever its vote bank politics are, fact is that you cannot be seen giving this kind of open platform to a blatant anti-India abuse. Let me ask Manjinder Singh Sirsa, tomorrow if India were to hold a referendum, let's say on Quebec, and should Quebec separate from Canada, would the Canadian High Commission or the Canadian government take it lightly? If that's the case, then why should India take such open Khalistan, annexation that's being called for through these SFJ and other fellows, the referendums that are happening? And this is happening on government premises. Both the referendum that happened in September and the one that happened over the weekend. This is Canadian government-owned property where this so-called referendum is happening.
No, very true, Jacob. It is not that government of India is not taking it up seriously. Time and again, government of India has taken up this issue with the Canadian government. My voice is a bit echoing. I think you're getting me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go on. We can hear you.
So, Jaka, it is time and again Indian government has been taking up this issue, but in spite of that, the Canadian government has been soft on those kind of people who is trying to influence the people sitting here in India. Their mission is that if they can be able to divide this country, which is impossible, I must say. And shockingly, all those people are funded by none other than a Pakistani ISI, which otherwise is known for its nefarious designs, and due to this, which American government has also had taken it very seriously against Pakistan. But I'm shocked to see this, that Canadian government, in spite of all this, even seeing what happened in their neighboring country, what happened on 9/11, how these things transpired there in America, and those were all generated from Pakistan itself. And these agitations, these referendums are paid by none other than ISI in Pakistan. But in spite of that, Canadian government is not taking them seriously. And you must have seen in last couple of months there have been killings. 2 people have been killed. One of them, very renowned Sikh there, Mr. Malik, who was assassinated. And then it came to know that the reason for his assassination was that the people, hardliners sitting there, were not happy with his activities, and so they decided to kill him. So
but Sirsa Saab, you know this free Khalistan business, which you're right.
In spite of all this,
Sirsa Saab, you're right that ISI is funding this and so on. But you know, ISI in Pakistan is a $350 billion economy. We are a almost $3 trillion economy. Are you saying that, and forget about, you know, what it's doing in Pakistan, what it's trying to do in Kashmir, but in a third country, in a so-called Western liberal democracy, we can't outmatch or outshine the influence that ISI has on some groups in Canada. Surely India is a much bigger player in the global stage, that it should be taken seriously.
No, the thing is, as the former diplomat Mr. Vishnu very clearly stated, that the reason right now is, Vishnu Prakashji said, the government is a minority government there, supported by the people who are supporters of these hardliners, or who have been in a power, just reason being because those hardliners have been supporting them with a financial power also and with a voting power also. And now they are repaying them by doing this. But the biggest challenge here is, it is not that Indian government hasn't taken it, has taken it very seriously, not once, twice, but in fact, when the Canadian Prime Minister was here in India, it was apprised him in a length breadth that what is going in Canada and how it will hamper your peace and prosperity there in Canada also. And now he's also facing all these kind of problems there. And in the coming days, these things will get worse. I must tell, today, they might see कि ये तो वहाँ हो रहा है because it is hindering in India, and they might be enjoying, but days are not far away when they have to taste this medicine also, and very soon. And in fact, they have been. If you see about these killings in Canada, it is the outcome of all those, because they have been soft on those people, and now they are facing these consequences also.
No, so let me ask Sushant Sareen. This is where, you know, I believe diplomatic heft, and let's not mince any words here. This is where hard power needs to come to bear. I mean, imagine if such a thing, instead of free Khalistan, if a bunch of Tibetans were to do this in Canada, saying free Tibet, and 100,000 people voted, you think China would have taken it lying low? There would have been an economic, diplomatic boycott of Canada by now.
Zaka, that's correct. But the thing is, I think we must look inwards. I agree with both my colleagues when they talk about vote bank politics and the peculiarities of Canadian politics. And I also think that the Canadians, even including the High Commissioner, are being rather disingenuous when they say that, you know, this is freedom of expression and we cannot stop this. This is the right to political freedoms in Canada, would they give a similar right to, for example, the Islamists who bat for the ISIS or the Al Qaeda?
Yeah.
Would they allow them to hold these kind of rallies publicly and openly and call for all kinds of violence in India? I don't think that would be allowed. So clearly the Canadians have their red lines, and this is not one of their red lines. Now, the problem, however, Zaka, is that we need to look inside. What have we done? We have lifted all the blacklists. We had blacklisted many of these Khalistanis. From my colleagues in Canada, what I get to hear is that very often politicians in Punjab recommend the cases of known Khalistanis and they are given visas to come to India. The Canadians, when we remonstrate with the Canadians say that, look, you've allowed Khalistanis to come to India. Your politicians and your people are garlanding them, and you expect us to take action against them. So what have we done about it? We have done in the Khalistani movement case, we have done what we have done in Kashmir. That all these despicable element, we have put them on our head. We have treated them with kid gloves. We have tried to give them concessions. And the guys who root for India, who hold the Indian flag aloft, who bat for India, we make them stand in long queues. We give them the treatment which babus give to normal people. So I think we need to look inside. What is the preventing this government from monitoring who are the people who have voted, for example, in this referendum, blacklisting each one of them, not only them, all their families. You know, Zaka, the travesty of this whole thing, people go from Punjab as illegal immigrants. Then out there, they apply for asylum and refuge. They are given that, they then get permanent residency or citizenship of Canada, and then we give those guys visas to come to India. Now, these are persecuted people, apparently, who run away from India, and everybody knows there's no persecution in India. These guys run away from India using that pretext, and then give them visas to come back to India. What is preventing the government of India and all this nonsense which is, said the government is doing everything? What is the government doing? Please tell me. What is the punitive measures you have taken against these people? Have you seized their properties? Have you auctioned their properties? Have you taken action against them? Have you stopped their visas? Have you stopped their travel? What have you done? Please tell me in concrete terms.
No,
don't give me these stories.
I think one of the points that Sushant made is absolutely well taken. I think it's a well-known, publicly available fact as to who these 75,000 people or 100,000 people who voted in these referenda are. Surely they would want to come back to India to meet family. Why are they being given visas? Surely they'll be sending money and remittances to their families back in India. Why should India accept money from people who don't want to be part of India, who want to, have this notion of Khalistan? But I also want to get Lord Rami Ranger into this conversation because it's not just in Canada. This happened last year in the UK as well, where again there was this so-called referendum on free Khalistan organized by an outlawed group here in India, the SFJ. Again, 100,000 people participated in that. In fact, the previous Indian High Commissioner to London was not even allowed to enter certain gurdwaras in London because it had become this hot den of free Khalistan. I mean, the point is, you want to be part of India and you want to do all of this anti-India activities on foreign soil, and none of those governments seem to be able to do a damn thing about it.
I think what these guys are doing, they are damaging the respect and the legacy of Sikh gurus for India. They're diminishing their respect because Sikh guru belong to the world, they belong to India, and they want to claim Sikh gurus for a handful of Khalistani terrorists. So therefore, they are, is ghar ko aag lag gayi, is ghar ke chirag se, where people are revering and respecting Sikh gurus, and they want to link Sikh gurus to themselves and diminishing their respect. Number two, there should be a law of sedition used vigorously and robustly against those people, especially starting with Pannu, because we have been impotent to bring Pannu to justice, and therefore Pannu has given a lot more encouragement to all these guys. As you panelists first said, the most of these guys deliberately become anti-India to seek asylum. Number three, India is a very, very strong democracy, largest democracy in the world. We should never ever take any reaction in panic. Let them do whatever they want to do. India is strong enough to withstand these little irritation. But what we need to do is to have a law that if anyone we have video cameras, we have pictures. Anyone seen agitating against Mother India will be tried for sedition the minute he lands in India. Number three, Canadian government should know from Pakistan experience, Pakistani harbor terrorists and they turned on Pakistan. So these guys, they are becoming unproductive citizens of Canada. They're disloyal to their own country. How are they going to be loyal to Canada? So they should learn, they should dismiss them and they should contain them. Otherwise, they will damage Canada more than they will damage India because they are not in India.
No, one of the points that Lord Ranger made is, I think, very, very valid. This guy, Gurpantan Singh Pannu, Sirsa Saab, you know, India had written to the Interpol saying, act against this guy. Obviously, he doesn't live in India, he lives abroad. And Interpol wrote back saying, oh, no, you can't act against him. And within a couple of months of that, India hosts the a World Conference of Interpol. Again, I come back to that question. If we are such a, diplomatic power and an economic power, we're hosting Interpol conferences, then surely we can get the Interpol to act against Pannu.
I agree. This is the reason.
Mr. Sirsa, thank you.
We should actually, we have never
that question is to Mr. Sirsa, thank you.
We have never asked.
So he's a very smart, Jaka, he's a very smart guy. You know, when he talks about India or when he talks about the anti-India statements, he has a very calculated statements written by his advocates. So he is very clearly states up the points also and also sees that he's never catch up in this in his language. So that was the reason when we take up this issue with Interpol and also with the American government also and the Canadian government also, they said that whatever he is using the language is not as a terrorist, it can't be counted as a terrorist activity. But otherwise, the reality is that he is the one who is the contention of bone in this case. He is the one who has been funding. Yesterday he announced 10 lakh rupees for the person who has assassinated in Amritsar. So the thing is, he is the man. But yes, surely because he is smart enough to use his language in a very calculated words through appropriate legal format, we are unable to tap in through Interpol, but I am sure about the Indian government. So there are many things which I cannot disclose on channel, but I knew that what government is doing and what government is supposed to do, and we are sure that you will see in the coming days. But one thing I must clearly say here. See, we shouldn't give them so much of importance. I knew they have nothing to say, they have nothing to do. As far as the Indians are concerned, there is no as such idea that they can float in our minds, but they want that they should be on a national channels here in India, and by some default we are also showing them, but doesn't make a difference. Tell them whatever they want to do, they can do in Canada, but on this bias, India, they cannot do a single thing. They won't be able, and they will never be able to achieve their agenda.
People like Dawood Ibrahim and others, of course, India has been pursuing this matter for a number of years, but I want to know from Vishnu Prakash, here is a terrorist, an outlawed individual from an outlawed organization, openly saying that he will give 10 lakh rupees to the person who indulged in a daylight murder in Amritsar last week. Is that not a crime? Is that not incitement to violence? Surely, wherever he is, UK or Canada, isn't it incumbent on the government there to act against a man who is openly inciting violence, calling for violence?
Zaka, you know and I know that one man's terrorist is and the other person may look at him differently. The terrorists are being protected by China, are being protected by other countries. There is a lot of politics involved. You know it as well as I do. But let me clarify a few things. I think what we are discussing is slightly different from reality. You know, we have, as I know for first hand, because I was High Commissioner to India in Canada.
Correct.
The visas were given to only those people who were contrite. They were on blacklist for 30 years. What purpose was it serving? So it is not that the government one day said that everything is forgiven and forgotten. It has been very selective. It has been carefully done. And how can we say that those who are still misbehaving or pursuing a nefarious agenda are being let off the hook? They are not. But the world does not go by our desires. I mean, we have to pursue that. We have to continue pressing each and every player, and we have to stay the course. It's not easy. I mean, the Comprehensive Convention of International Terrorism, the draft was presented in '96. So there is a lot of politics involved, and it's very easy to say that we should do this and do that. I think one has to make haste slowly. Steps have to be taken because in a incremental fashion, we have never. Achha, by the way, the Khalistani movement, which was so strong in the 80s and 90s, is shadow of itself. So it is not that we went all guns blazing and it happened, because there is a fatigue with terror activities or separatist activities. It is a phase, and this phase is being handled very maturely and carefully. As far as funding is concerned, let me also clarify here that most of the funding is coming from within, because the separatists, they control the gurudwaras, and the Sikhs, who are pious people, they do not know that where the money is going, and this money is, they donate to gurudwaras, and the money is taken away by the Khalistani separatists who are controlling the gurudwaras. So that is where the funding is coming from, most of the funding.
So Shant, you want to respond to what Ambassador Prakash said?
Yeah, it's one of those very few occasions on which I have some disagreements with what Ambassador Prakash said. I'll make 3 or 4 quick points. Number one, towards something which Mr. Sirsa said. You can't, Zaka, I think you are doing human service by talking about this, because you can't shut your eyes to something which is happening in front of you and expect that it will not happen just because you've shut your eyes. So yes, please expose what is happening, and that is important to put pressure on government to move. Number one. Number two, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash says that, blacklists were there for 30 years and this is a movement is a shadow of itself. One of the reasons why this movement, apart from the way the Punjab police led by Mr. KPS Gill wiped out terrorism in Punjab, I think these blacklists and the kind of punitive measures which the government of India took in the past did have some impact. I don't know how much, it's difficult to quantify, but it did have. And please look at the correlation. The moment these blacklists go, the moment some of these jokers have been, given visas, they've been allowed to come in a spirit of reconciliation. I don't see how you reconcile with terrorists. You see the steady rise of this Khalistani movement again. To say it is a shadow of what it was in the 80s and early 90s is perhaps true. But that shadow is looming large every day. And we are seeing incidents of terrorism rising on a daily basis. What we need is zero tolerance, which means you scrap all visas. No visas will be given without proper vetting, number one. You scrap all these PIO and OIC cards for these characters. Scrap them across the board and reissue them after having duly verified these people, and do it for the families. Don't do it for individuals. Do it for entire families.
All right.
And number three, please have a hawk eye on any monies coming into Punjab from these sources. Number four, please remember one thing, that it is exceedingly important. It is not good enough to write a letter to Interpol and say that, this Pannu fellow is a terrorist. Yes, he is. But you have to build, Zaka, a proper case. You have to make a compelling case that the speeches, the monies, and the acts of terrorism taking place out here. Forget Interpol. Can you not make a proper case like this with the Canadian government or the British government?
Sure.
With the British, it's going to be even tougher, because the British have this habit of playing, these games with India all the time. But perhaps it might be a little easier with the Canadians. But you have to build a compelling case. And then there have to be diplomatic repercussions in case this does not happen. To say that it's not as easy as it seems is perhaps correct. But just because it's not as easy as it seems does not mean that we do not take the tough.
Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I want to thank all our guests. Like I said, the point of this program is to show what is happening in another country, open and blatant anti-India activity against another sovereign country. And I'm very clear in my mind that even violates the basic UN Charter. So if the government of India needs to make a case, it surely should start from there. But let's see how this story plays out. I want to move on to some domestic political news where the hangama over the Delhi excise policy scam seems to have now taken a fresh twist. Businessman Dinesh Arora, who's been accused in the scam, has moved to CBI court today, seeking pardon without any coercion. Arora says that he wants to become a witness and he's ready to disclose all the facts related to the case. Just a few days ago, the same court had granted anticipatory bail to Dinesh Arora after the CBI did not oppose his bail plea. The Delhi court will now hear the application seeking pardon on the 14th of November. Arora is believed to be a close aide of Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia and also somebody who benefited in a big way from the new liquor policy. Let me now go across to Ananya. What may Dinesh Arora turning approver or turning witness in this case, what may this legally mean for Manish Sisodia?
Definitely, Zaka, this is a big development that has taken place in the Liquorgate scandal, and we shall remember that if Dinesh Arora turns an approver into this particular case, because he was a beneficiary of this particular scheme, he was well aware of all the context and the contentions of this particular scheme, he might spill a lot of beans. Secondly, when he will turn an approver into this case, his status would change from an accused to a witness, and his statements would actually hold more value and more credibility. Now, thirdly, he would have a lot of revelations to make, and that's the reason why, in fact, the CBI would also have agreed that he be turning an approver into this particular case, and that's the reason why the Central Bureau of Investigation had moved an application seeking to turn him into an approver. But at this point of time, if at all the court allows for him to become an approver into this particular case, a lot of troubles might be mounting for the Aam Aadmi Party, because remember that the day anticipatory bail plea was filed by Dinesh Arora into this particular case, the very same day, in fact, Vijay Nair was arrested by the Central Bureau of Investigation into this particular case, and particularly the Central Bureau of Investigation had not opposed the bail application that was filed by Dinesh Arora, anticipatory bail application, in fact, saying that he was cooperative in this current probe, and that's the reason why he is now sought for pardon and has said that he wants to turn an approver into this particular case and would cooperate in that particular probe.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Ananya Bhatnagar there with details of this possibility that Dinesh Arora could turn approver. The court is yet to take a call on that. Meanwhile, there was an anti-hijab protest that took place in Kerala over the weekend. The protest was organized by the Kozhikode Islamic free thinkers in front of the town hall in Kozhikode city. During their annual seminar this year, women burnt the hijab in solidarity with the Iranian women who've been protesting since September, when 22-year-old Masha Amini was reportedly beaten in custody by Iran's morality police for wearing the hijab improperly. She later succumbed to her injuries. Post this, massive protests have been taking place in Iran, where locals are demanding the quashing of the morality police. Neetu now joins us live. So the question that's being asked is, if they are doing this in solidarity with the protesters who've been arrested and against whom action has been taken in Iran, what is the position about women who are wearing hijab in India, including in places like Kozhikode, where this matter, of course, is also pending before the Supreme Court, whether or not a dress code should be followed in educational institutions. Do these women who protested have to say anything about that?
See, Saka, this is a protest that was organized by the Kerala Yuktivadi Sangam, which is a rationalist association. So every year they have this free thinking seminars that they organize. And yesterday at the Kozhikode town hall, as part of their annual seminar, they said this issue was burning at this moment. It was timely. That is why they decided to have this protest against in solidarity with what is happening in Iran. But this was a protest that was organized by the Yuktivadi Sangam, which are the rationalists.
All right, Neetu, we'll leave it at that. We'll see how this story plays out. The bigger question also is to political parties in Kerala, including the likes of the Indian Union Muslim League, as to what their position is as far as hijab is concerned. That's a wrap. In a moment.